Hello, and welcome to another episode of Pathos Metamorphose on this day, the 16th of January, 2023, Martin Luther King Day. I have to confess that I didn't realize that Martin Luther King Day was coming until somebody at work let me know that yes, indeed, it is Martin Luther King Day today. This was, I believe, in the middle of last week. And I am very grateful to have an extra day off. And I am very grateful for Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King and his life and his message. And what I want to do today to honor his life is, one thing obviously that we can do is look at, watch with maybe new eyes the I Have a Dream speech. I also recommend everyone to read or reread, if you've already read, Letter from a Birmingham Jail. It was written by Dr. King while he was in prison, and it was a passion plea to those who would seek to, hey, just calm down, okay? Just kind of speak a language of, hey, just take it easy, we're on your side. We want to see change too. And basically, just read it and see if you can't really sense the. I'm going off script here, so I'm grasping for words, but just see if you can. I would defy anyone not to find something that would resonate with. That they would resonate with today. If you read it anew with new eyes, you'll see, I think, how these are words for our times. They're prophetic words, and they stand true today as much as they did then. Now we've seen some progress, however, we've got a long way to go, and basically, on this day, what I would like to do to honor Dr. King, besides watching anew the I Have a Dream speech, and then as soon as I pick up my son from daycare, I want us to sit down and watch that and talk about it, and talk about what it means, my 5-year-old son, to the extent that he has an understanding of that. The implications of what it means. I mean, at its core, we are all human beings, and we are all created in the image of God. And Dr. King's message resonates with me because, we are all created in God's image, and that is the foundation of what we believe as followers of Christ, and those who have a faith in a God who created us, human beings, in his image. That should resonate with us as well. So setting aside, and that should be the circle which runs everything, everything else in our lives, rotates around that circle, if indeed we are of that faith tradition that we believe in God, and we believe that he created us in his image. So all God's creatures, whether they be black, white, Native American, Hispanic, Asian, I won't name everybody every people group in the world, Indian, everyone in the world We are created in God's image. And Dr. King's message is the same today. It's the same message that we read of in the Bible. And we can honor his life and his legacy by treating everyone as they should be treated. As the Golden Rule says, Jesus says, as is quoted in Matthew, do unto others as... I always get this wrong, especially now that I'm on video. I'm sure I'll get it wrong. But you know the saying, do unto others as they would have done unto you, as you would do unto them. Basically treat everybody with the same respect that you have toward yourself. And the implication is that there would be respect toward yourself. And how do we get to a right understanding of who we are? Well, I believe it's in realizing that how much God honors us and respects us and loves us and wants a relationship with us, and we too, as fellow imagers of God, need to honor the image within all people. I had the privilege of attending a church, and it wasn't a thing at all. I didn't even think of it while I was there. I mean, it was a beautiful thing now that I look back on it. But Community Baptist Church in Somerset, New Jersey, I was able to work with just wonderful people. Jake Reed, a fellow laborer with Christ, and we were involved with the youth there. Others as well that were involved with the youth there. It wasn't even a thought or a question. It was just something that the fellowship was very much real and deep and enjoyed. And Jake Reed is an African American man, and again, not even a question or an issue. As I'm riffing here, and I hope nobody minds me saying their name here, I do Uber Eats on the side. My main gig is a job with AT&T, but on the side sometimes I do Uber Eats, and I had one of my drop-offs was in Dinky Lofts. It's in Dinkytown, University of Minnesota. Anyway, I walked into the little lobby area there where the apartment where I was making the delivery, and I was going to drop off the food there, take a picture of it for the recipient, so they know where to come to get it. There was a gentleman in the little lobby area there, and he's right away was like trying to explain himself. He had his cell phone plugged in, and like a lot of his I guess things that he maybe lived with him. I sense that maybe he was possibly homeless because he had a lot of his stuff with him. He was charging his phone using a public place like that. He felt the need to sort of explain himself to me. Now, it doesn't matter that he was black. He could have easily been a white person who was fell on hard times or what have you. But he felt the need to explain himself. Oh yeah, I'm just charging my phone. And I kind of just stopped him and said, hey, how you doing? And just introduced myself, and we talked. I think his name was Mike, or Michael. But he, I just, as I thought about it, especially afterwards, and I got to know him a little bit, and can we just speak to each other on a human level? What is it that causes people to it's hard to put into words, but it really kind of broke my heart, and it breaks my heart every time I stop and maybe see somebody that's, what they call panhandling. And I try to inject a dose of humanity if I can by engaging in conversation, asking how they're doing. And I had one guy, right around Christmas time, tell me about his family won't talk to him. He kind of just broke down and started crying as I'm talking to him, and I just think about, how can we, as fellow human beings, relate to one another, regardless of perceived class. Now, this is well beyond just the racial conversation here, though it includes that. How do we look at each other? Where somebody feels the need to, have to explain themselves in a lobby area where, hey, this is what I'm doing. I'm not up to no good, sir. Blah blah blah. No. Just, I'm a fellow human being like you are, and let's just relate to each other on that level. And how you doing? And let's get to know one another. And at a foundational level, how do we look at our fellow? If we're not of the faith, I understand that you could still treat each other with basic common decency. You don't have to be a fellow believer. And in fact, the ones I respect probably the most are those who don't have a faith, but yet they want to treat others with decency and with respect. And we have a long way to go as brothers and sisters in Christ. And politics should not be the lens that we see our fellow imagers of God through. We are all, if we are believers in Christ, then we are all of that tribe. And we look at our tribe as maybe, those who go to the same church, those who are of the same political persuasion as us, that agree with our views. Well, I want to challenge that in myself, and I want to challenge that for everyone who might be just tuning in here, is check that. As we're starting a new year here, 2023, check yourself on how you are looking at your fellow imagers of God. Don't let others dictate to you. Don't let the pundits on TV determine how you think about other people. If you need to check yourself before, if the if the news that you're watching is dictating how you feel about a fellow imager of God, then check that at the door. And I would ask that all of us, including myself, tune into other sources that would give us a more balanced perspective on our fellow humans that we live with, and not get stuck in these echo chambers that it's so easy for us to get stuck in. So I want to maybe get off my soapbox a little bit here, but maybe not, because that's kind of what this thing is all about, isn't it? This Pathos Metamorphose thing that I'm doing here. So we'll stop there, I believe. But I want to thank everybody for tuning in so far. I think I'll have a couple other words to say, but right now I'm just speaking off the cuff, and I tend to go on and on when I don't have anything written down, which is what's happening here. Maybe while I'm here, though, I will mention I was able to go to the Vikings game yesterday, and that was a lot of fun, though it was the last game of the season. It was a playoff game, and they lost. We're going to keep the theme along the lines of being Martin Luther King Day. And one of the things I've really appreciated about the Vikings this season is Kevin O'Connell, the coach, has talked a lot about culture. And I think what he's brought and what the staff has brought is a culture that's very, one of working together, of understanding who the individuals are, and basically, what I see in the locker room and the talks there, the staff, the coaches, and the players know that they're loved and appreciated, and that's one thing that again is a big thing, a big theme on this podcast, if you call it that, or whether it's a video log or whatever. It's only on YouTube, so maybe it's just a YouTube thing. It's just that we're all in this together, and we're all and the message I would want to communicate to my fellow followers of Christ, those who call themselves followers of Christ, is to basically open our eyes to the tribe, the global tribe that is out there beyond our own little world. Maybe if our little world only includes whatever news show we tune into, or whatever people we tune into that seem to agree with us, because maybe we've been fed. It's like the frog in the kettle thing, or the frog in the boiling water. It starts out maybe in lukewarm water, but over time, it's in that water, and it eventually goes to boiling, and the frog eventually doesn't hop out because it's been conditioned over time. Now, I don't know if that's a real thing or that could really happen, but you can see the principle of that. The culture that we're in, can determine how we respond to the world around us, and we need corrective lenses. Many of us, including myself from time to time, and we need to really check ourselves. And our orientation should be around, well, what does God say through Jesus? What is he's died for everyone. Jesus died for the sins of everyone. And so we need to love all of our fellow imagers of God, regardless of whether we agree with them or not. We need to love them with the love of Christ. If we are indeed, if we have the Holy Spirit resident in us, that's what we need to do. As long as I'm kind of talking here, and I'll just keep going until I'm done here, until I run out of things to say, I guess, and as long as I remember what I want to say. Books. I got this book. It's wonderful. Surrender by Bono. I've been a fan of U2 since I was a kid. My friend Ryan Balson, he's now a pastor. I hope he doesn't mind me saying his name. But he's a pastor in Pennsylvania, and he's introduced me to a lot of great music over the years, and I really value his friendship. One of the bands that he introduced me to was U2. I think it was back in 1983 when the War album came out, and he said, I've heard the song New Year's Day, and he played it for me, and I wasn't immediately taken by it. I don't know what I was expecting. I think it was I was into sort of parody music or something, and I thought it was going to be something like a Weird Al song about New Year's Day or something, and so it wasn't what I expected. But I know Ryan was able to go to the Unforgettable Fire tour, and I remember him telling me about it, and how Bono and maybe the band, and I think particularly Bono, invited people that were in the cheap seats that couldn't it wasn't sold out or anything, I guess, but he said, hey, come on to the front, and hang with us and stuff like that. And one of the things that U2 and Bono in particular, as the front man in the band, has always been about, is breaking down the barrier that what do you call it, the fifth wall, I think, or the fourth wall, maybe it is, because the fourth wall is between you and the audience. Bono's talked about Patti Smith. I mentioned Patti Smith in the last podcast episode, and as a punk, I don't think she would have thought herself as maybe she did, but a punk, sort of the godmother of punk. When she got it started, she was just sort of just being herself, and but that's what I think she's been about, and Bono's really not borrowed, but been inspired by that from her. And I kind of felt that being in the audience when I went to the Patti Smith concert with my friend Dean in New Jersey. That was a great show. You felt like you were sort of a part of it. It's that feeling of again, coming back to sort of the theme of us all being in it together, and there's no sense, or there's no, you're not, there's no this is probably where I should pause and collect myself and figure out what I'm going to say, but I'll struggle through it here. But there's no power. Nobody's holding anything over you in terms of control or power. It's just and again, the song, which I find very meaningful, by Patti Smith, people have the power. And I think I misquoted her in the last episode when I was quoting some of the lyrics, because when I'm talking off the cuff, that's what happens. But it's the power to dream. I think I said to lead. Power to dream, to rule, to wrestle the earth from fools. Whatever I said before, it was something like that. But anyway, I probably would want to, if I had prepared something to say, read some of this from the book, because I just find it so meaningful. The book, I recommend it to anyone. 40 Songs, Our Story. My son Vincent drew here. That's what you see, the purple around his eyes. So that's not on the book that you would buy. Just Bono has a way with words. He's taken this on the road, and I think you can even look it up. Somebody, made a video of it. It costs a lot of money. I haven't done it yet or broken down and bought it. It seems like it'd be well worth it. I kind of splurged on the Vikings tickets, so that was my thing to splurge on, and I won't spend any of that kind of money anytime soon. But if I could, especially if I could get tickets cheaply, which I would go to one of these shows. Again, I was beginning to say about U2, been a fan for many years. Ryan introduced me to him. I went to the Joshua Tree concert in 87. It may have been 80. Yeah, it was 87. And then the following year in 88, that was my first U2 concert. I've been to several others since. None in the 90s, though, for whatever reason. Although it would have been really cool to see any of those tours, including especially the Achtung Baby Zoo TV tours. But I've seen all the ones, the big ones, after every album or whatever, when U2 have toured in the 2000s and the 2010s. What was I going to say? Yeah, U2, 1988, my birthday, November 4th, 88, the day I turned 18 years old, Rattle and Hum came out. It has its quote-unquote haters in terms of the movie and stuff, but it was great. It was a good movie. I enjoyed it. Maybe I was a little disappointed. I don't know why. It was probably my 18-year-old head. I maybe expected more from them, speaking to their faith perspective, but because I recognized that the band members, and had heard about all the band members being Christians except for Adam, the bass player. And Bono speaks a lot about his faith here, and he talks about Adam and how he's since come to faith through, I guess, I think AA or something like it. But in any case, he doesn't, I really appreciate his perspective. It's there's not too many folks out there in the public eye that are really speaking honestly about their faith, and in ways that I think are winsome to the world around. For example, I heard on local radio station KFan fairly recently, maybe a month or so ago, the local guys, I'm not quite sure which of them were talking about it, but one of them was bringing up this book and talking about how the band almost split up early on after or during their second album, October, due to their faith, and that it was a struggle within the band because they were in a charismatic Christian group that sort of wanted them to devote themselves fully to Christ and sort of offer up the band as a sacrifice to God. And that resonated with, I don't know if these folks are Christians, but, I do know that Paul Allen is a fellow believer in Christ. And he's a national treasure to me, not only to LeBron James, but to me, not only for his the way he calls the games. I do tune in on the radio to the games sometimes when I'm driving, like for Uber. If later on I'll go home and watch the game because I DVR all the DVR'd all the Vikings games this season. But not only do I appreciate Paul Allen's calls on the radio, he brings a lot of enthusiasm and excitement. I've also come to find out that he's a fellow follower of Christ since 2019. Came to faith at 52 years old, which is how old I am now. And he's in the public, and he's, again, another guy that, not ashamed to be called a follower of Christ. So I mentioned Bono as a follower of Christ. Now, a lot of people, and again, I think it speaks to how we are looking at politics as the dividing line of who we are. But as fellow believers of Christ, we should rejoice when somebody like Bono's out there, honestly and with integrity, speaking the truth. Alice Cooper, that's another guy, that is a follower of Christ, and he spoke to his, I don't know if this was pastor or another pastor, early on when he was following. I think he grew up as a follower of Christ, but maybe sort of rededicated his life to Christ when he was older, and he gave up, some of the more what you consider sort of rock and roll cliche type things like drinking and alcohol, drugs, and whatever. But he's remained married to his wife for many years, and he got things straight. He became sober, and he asked this pastor friend, "Hey, what do you think? Should I give up this whole Alice Cooper gig?" And I think the pastor gave some wise advice and said, "Well, what can you do with this platform that you have? You can see it as an opportunity." And he's very forthright, and I've read many interviews with him where he's talking about his faith and how he has been able to share his faith with others, in the quote unquote rock and roll community. So it's awesome, and as fellow believers, we should rejoice in things like that as we see it. So I was going to read a section from this book. Maybe I'll save that for the next episode. But again, the U2's I've been a big fan, and commend this book to you. It's a good one. I've been reading a lot. I'm gonna have to. New Year's resolution is gonna have to be to read a lot of these books that I've gotten, and I got mainly recently because I took advantage of something through work. Benefits if you watch videos and do certain things like in terms of health and stuff like that, gives you points to use toward things like Amazon gift cards. So I was able to buy some books. Unseen Realm, I've read it. I read it online, and now I have the book, so I'm happy to have that by Dr. Michael Heiser. Recommend it. This is one I haven't read yet by Dr. Heiser called Angels, What the Bible Really Says About God's Heavenly Host. And again, as I think I mentioned in a previous episode or two, he's really breaks down the worldview of the Bible, and I really appreciate his perspective and breaking it down for the layman like me. And pray for Dr. Heiser, please, because he's got oh wow, it's eluding me right now, but some kind of cancer, and so he's lost a lot of weight, and just pray for him. that he gets better. He's definitely a voice that I think we need more like in our world. Very honest and very, breaking it down for the layman. Thinking about what it looks like through a ancient Near East perspective. Putting ourselves in that world and reading the Bible through those eyes, and maybe not with our Western eyes, because we have a tendency to look at things from only our perspective. And while it's good to read the Bible in whatever way we read it, and with the help of the Holy Spirit, of course, it's also good to. I gotta shut off that alarm that was going off on my phone. So to read it through the ancient Near East perspective in which it was written, which makes sense. And another person that really does that is Dr. John Walton. I believe he's a doctor, but John Walton, in any case, I've got his Lost World series. I think I've got some of them on the shelf over there, but there really is. Dr. Walton is trying to bring home the importance of understanding the Bible from the perspective it was written. And so this is the Lost World of Adam and Eve. I read the first one, which was the Lost World of Genesis 1, which goes basically into the creation account, and in this day and age, there's such a, we set up a lot of false binaries. I've talked a lot about that on this podcast and other episodes. These false dichotomies, these either or choices, like creationism versus evolution. It's got to be one or the other. It can't be both. But reading the Bible for the way it was written, you see, and just in the language that it's written, in the original Greek, or the original language it was written, Hebrew or Greek or whatever the case may be, the account of Genesis talks about functional origins. God created, bara, it was created for, this is the Hebrew word, created with a functional purpose. And God deemed it good, or called it good or complete, when it was functionally working. So there is no comment in Genesis, the Genesis account of origins, about material creation. God created matter, and here's what went into the creation of matter. It doesn't talk about that. But yet we're hung up on this sort of thing in our day and age, because we have a orientation towards material origins, and that's something we're particularly interested in. But if you think about it from like any other kind of pragmatic perspective, as Walton points out, I think in his first book, you don't talk about, you may spend a little time on origins or something, but you spend a lot of time in, okay, how do you do your job? You might say, okay, well, this is how it started, blah, 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 blah. And then you skip past that and you go right to, here's how you do your job, and here's what it means to do your job well. And that's the important thing, is that, hey, you know how to do your job, you know how to do your job well. And like Bill Belichick says, quote him, just do your job. I guess that's part of his mantra as his coach. And the culture there is, hey, your job is here on the defensive line, just do your job. And the functional job that's being described in the book of Genesis, his creation, is described by how it functions. And so that's the orientation of the ancient Near East in which that was written. Whenever it was written, it was obviously years after creation. And so we need to kind of look at that and take it for what it is. and doing so really, takes herself out of the of this whole teleological. That's a big word. It means purpose-driven. When we talk about teleology, it's the what is our purpose? What is the purpose of creation versus evolution? Blah blah blah. We can kind of take it away from that discussion and say, hey, look, God created, and He gave it a functional purpose. That's what we believe. That's what's there in the Bible, and we don't have to, because we get impaled, as a friend of mine said in one of his songs. We get impaled on the horns of sacred cows, and we this either or thing, we set up these sacred cows and not even realizing, hey, we don't need to do that. God created, He gave it a function, He gave it a purpose. We, in the scientific community, we're trying to figure things out. Like, well, maybe how did things come about? How might have they come about? We have got some pretty good theories, but we don't know for sure. And we could follow the data where it leads, and we can say, hey, I'm good with that. I'm a follower of Christ. I believe God created it. I don't see a problem with the world coming into being through whatever means God may have used to make it come into being. So again, it's a false dichotomy that we set up a lot of times with many different things, whether it be who we, if we are a follower of Christ, for example, we should not be hung up on, okay, does our brother or sister in Christ believe something differently about politics? If we are followers of Christ, we can set that aside and say, hey, our fellowship is not on the basis of who I voted for, okay? And so I would challenge all of us to set aside this sort of rhetoric that sees humanity in terms of, how you look at other people. Look at other people as they are fellow imagers of God. And that goes all the way back to what I started with and what Dr. Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech was about, what he was fighting for in a very peaceful way, a very Christ-like way, in what he was talking, but yet very firmly in his letter from a Birmingham jail. Please read it again. I really commend that to you, and let it sink in, and just let it grip you. Let it do to you what maybe God would have it do to you, because the words are very prophetic, just as the I Have a Dream speech was very prophetic. And I too look forward to the day when we are all together, worshiping and loving each other as God loved us from the beginning of time. And I think this is a good point to wrap it all up. Thank you for tuning in if you've made it this far. God bless you, and thank you for watching.
Let us love one another. Sisters, brothers, let us love one another.